Sometimes we're asked to kind of work backwards from what we did in the example where we graphed in the previous video, where we're given some information about the graph or of the circle, and we have to come up with the equation based on that information. So in the first example that we see in front of us, we want to write the equation of the circle whose center is at 8, -4, and that has a radius of 7. So we just have to plug those numbers in to the correct locations in the equation. Sometimes, as in this one, we're basically given all of the information that we need right away. So remember, the equation for a circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. And so now I'm just going to slot these numbers into the appropriate locations. So 8 is the x-coordinate of the center, so we're going to have x minus 8 squared, because it's x minus the x-coordinate, squared, plus y minus k, but because k, the y-coordinate of the center, is -4, it's going to become y plus 4 squared equals, and then the radius is 7, so 7 squared equals 49. So in some circumstances, it's as easy as that, where we just have to plug in the numbers into the correct locations and we have our equation. There are other circumstances, however, where we have a little bit more work to do. So in the next one, we're asked to write the equation of a circle, and so again we're given the center, so we're going to be able to plug that in for h and k in our equation. But this time we're not given the radius directly. Instead, we're given a point through which the circle passes. We're told that the graph passes through the point -1, 1. So what we're going to do is, to start off with, is make use of that 5, -3 center point. So we're going to have x minus 5 squared plus, and then y minus -3, so y plus 3 squared equals r squared. So we have half the battle taken care of. We've got the center, we just have to figure out the radius. And so that's where this point comes in. If I know that my circle passes through that point, that means that that point is going to work in my equation. So then I can just take it and plug it in for x and y in the equation that I'm building, and then solve for r. So I'm going to plug in -1 in place of x, so I've got -1 minus 5 squared plus, and then I'm going to plug in 1 for y, 1 plus 3 squared equals r squared. And so -1 minus 5 gives me -6, so that's still going to be squared. 1 plus, that's a 3 there, so 4 squared equals r squared. And so then finally I've got -6 squared is positive 36 plus 4 squared is 16 equals r squared, or r squared is going to end up equaling 52. Now I could go ahead and take the square root of both sides to figure out what the actual value of r is, and if I was trying to graph this or whatever, that would be a necessity. So square root of 52, we'd be able to simplify a little bit. We know that the square root of 52 is a little bit bigger than the square root of 49, so we'd get a number a little bit bigger than 7. So for graphing purposes, that's how we'd have to approach it. But since we're not graphing, we're just trying to write the equation, we need r squared, we don't need r. So we don't really have any more work that we have left to do. We can just finish off our equation. So we've got the x minus 5 squared plus y plus 3 squared equals 52. And so there's the equation of our circle that has these features that were described for us. And so then for the last example, we've got the same sort of thing where we've got to write the equation of our circle. So just to make sure that we see it in front of us, we'll write it down here. So again, we need to know what the center is, and we need to know what the radius is, or the radius squared is. So in this case, we have neither. Neither the center nor the radius is given to us directly, but we do know that the endpoints of the diameter, and so remember the diameter is the line that goes through the center of the circle, are -4, 1, and 2, -7. So I'm not even going to try to plot those accurately But if I've got the two endpoints of the diameter, that means that my circle looks something like this. Well, if I want to figure out what the center is going to be the midpoint of that line segment that connects the 2 points, A and B. And so hopefully we've got some memory of our geometry days where we knew how to find the midpoint of a segment given the coordinates of the 2 points. And so the way we do that is to find the midpoint. We're going to take the 2x coordinates, add them and divide by 2. So basically find the average of the x coordinates, and then do the same thing for the 2 y coordinates. And so that's what I'm going to do here to find what the center, what the HK values are for our circle in question. So we can add -4 plus 2, put that over 2, and then we're going to add the y coordinates, 1 plus -7 over 2. And so -4 plus 2 is -2. -2 divided by 2 is -1. And then 1 plus -7 is -6. -6 divided by 2 is -3. So our, let's try to make that into a comma there. So our xy coordinates of the center are -1, -3. So now I can take those numbers and plug them in for h and k into my equation. So then I've got x minus -1, or x plus 1 squared, plus y minus -3, or y plus 3 squared, equals r squared. And so now my last task is to figure out what the value of r is, or of r squared is. And so really we're now at the same point that we were on the previous question, where I can now take either of these 2 points, since they are both on the circumference of the circle, plug them in for x and y, and then solve for r, or really just r squared, and then we've got all the pieces that we need for our equation. So if we use the first point here, just because it's first, doesn't matter which one we use. So I'm going to plug in -4 in place of x, and I'm going to plug in 1 in place of y. And so now we go through, -4 plus 1 is -3, plus 1 plus 3 is 4, equals r squared. So now if we square both of these, -3 squared is 9, plus 4 squared, 16, equals r squared. So we know that r squared equals 25. That means that the radius is 5. But again, really what we need is r squared to finish out our equation. So our final result is x plus 1 squared, that's the x coordinate of the center that we found, plus y plus 3 squared, the y coordinate of the center that we found, equals 25. So here's an example of where we're given neither the center nor the radius to get started, but we've got tools from our experience in our geometry days that we can use to figure out what the midpoint of that segment is, midpoint of the diameter is, which is going to be the center, and then we can solve for the radius squared, just like we had in the previous question, by using one of those 2 points and plugging it in for x and y.